Alright, our radio is set. So these are the CHTs. So they're yellow because they're not quite in range yet. They're actually too cold. When they start to get too hot, they'll turn yellow. And then if they get, exceeding the normal range, they'll go to red. So these guys, we want to have them 200 degrees before we take off. And we want the oil temperature to start coming up, which means the oil is nicely warmed up and the engine is ready to go. So we're looking for 200 degrees on the cylinders and, like 90, 100 degrees on the oil. We definitely want to see the oil temperature coming up though. So like if it's like 10 degrees out, it might be a long time before the oil gets above 100 degrees. So it's 50 degrees to start. We just need to make sure the oil temperature is coming up. We want it to be, not 50 degrees when we take off. We want it to be warmer. Okay, we'll set the fuel because the last time I put 5 gallons in it and I didn't reset the fuel gauge here, so I go to the fuel menu and it says fuel computer quantity adjust. We can use the knob to dial in how much fuel we're adding into the computer. Well, I added 5 gallons, so I'm going to put 5 right there and then I'll hit accept. And that gives us our 15 gallons of gas. So we'll let that go. We can reset our barometric pressure. Right now we're at 6,020 feet. We know we should be at about 6150 right here. Okay, 6150. And we'll continue to let the engine warm up. We'll be taxiing for the runway here in just a moment. Okay, you remember all these instruments, right?
Yeah.
You do?
HT, oil pressure, oil temperature, compass, altimeter.
Engine RPM, airspeed. Obviously it's on dashes because we're not going anywhere, so we have no airspeed. And then battery voltage down here. We're right on the bottom edge of the voltage because the engine's just idling. It's not making a whole lot of power. Once the RPM comes up, we'll start making juice. And then our fuel flow right now, we're at a very low fuel flow setting, 1.5 gallons per hour. We're at the bottom of the range. We've used 0.0 gallons so far. We have 14.8 in the tank. And at our current fuel flow rate of that ridiculously low rate, we can run the engine for 10 hours in 6 minutes before we run out of gas.
I don't think that we can go anywhere though.
No. And this bottom one with the dashes, that's our range in miles. So even though we can run for 10 hours and 16 minutes, we have 0 miles of range because we're not moving.
Get out and push it.
Alright, so CHTs are all coming up nicely. So the bars here, the colors are the EGTs, so you can graphically see how they all compare to each other. And the little white line are the CHTs. Same thing, you can see how they graphically compare to each other. So they always move that direction. So you can see that the hot cylinder is that number 3 cylinder right there. And the cold cylinder is that number 1 cylinder. And EGT-wise, they pretty much follow the same pattern.
Okay.
Alright, take the brake off. Check our controls, make sure that we're not going to bump into anything. And we can taxi for the runway. Now, we talked about how to position the controls for wind, didn't we?
Yeah.
So, here's the basic rule. When you're going into the wind, you're taxiing into the wind, you want to fight that headwind. And the way you fight that headwind is you want to pull back on the stick and turn the stick into the wind. So right now the wind is coming from that way. So we pull back on the stick and turn into the wind. We're fighting it.
Okay.
If we're going with the wind, we want to go with the wind. If the wind is going like that way, we want to push the stick with the wind. So when the wind is at your back, go with the wind. When you're going into the wind, you gotta fight it. Alright, so this guy is sitting on the runway over here. I'm not quite sure what he's doing. He's just,
Spring C, 7567 Juliet Whiskey, taking 35 back taxi.
Alright, so he's gonna back taxi on the runway itself. Probably because he saw me coming and he's like, oh man, I missed my chance. So he'll go to the end of the runway, and then he'll turn around and make a U-turn and take back off on the runway itself.
Okay.
Alright, that is a mangy rabbit right there. Fur's all chewed up and matted. He's over there. That rabbit needs to move on to someplace else.
Did we reset our altimeter?
Yeah. We're at 6150 over by the hangar, about, and we're at 6180 at this end over here.
Oh, okay.
We can do another check at this end of the runway.
Spring C, 7 Juliet Whiskey, taking off, 35 minutes remain in the pattern.
Alright, so the wind is behind us, directly behind us going that way. So the stick is forward and neutral. We're going with the wind. It's behind us, it's blowing us. We're going with the wind. If the wind was behind us blowing kind of that way, we'd go like that with the wind.
Okay.
Okay? If the wind was coming towards us, we'd want to fight that wind in one way or the other, turning into it, pulling back. When the wind's behind you, you go with the wind. When the wind's in front of you, you fight it. That will help you position the controls correctly. So that guy went on his takeoff roll. You can probably hear it more by now. So we'll do the before takeoff checklist right here. Get over here, we can do a run-up.
7 Juliet Whiskey, right, lost wind, 35 left.
Okay. So, fuel valve on, flight controls pretty correct, radio set, flight instruments set. We're at P180.
Spring C, 7 Juliet Whiskey, right, downwind, 35.
Elevator trim neutral, so we're right here in the middle. Motor set. We're gonna run up to about 1800 RPM and check the mags. Okay, so 1740, that's pretty close. So we go 1, it dropped off a little bit. We went from 1740 to 1670. That's about normal. Back to both. Then we go over to the right. And 1690, so a little bit of a drop. That's what we expect, but not an excessive drop. And if we had carpet, we would check carpet, but we don't.
Okay.
This guy's flying a really tight pattern, so we'll wait for him to get out of our way before we go. Okay. And the last thing is seat belts,
Spring C,
canopy.
7 Juliet Whiskey, turning right, base.
Make sure seat belts are latched and tight. Canopy's closed. The canopy's latched and closed. Everything's good. Everything's set. Fuel valves on. The last thing we're going to do is we're going to go to full rich before we actually take off. So we'll wait till we get on the runway. Okay, so our CHTs are good. We're at 295, 273, 298, 273. So we're all in the high 200s, which is good. We got 113 degrees in the oil, so the engine is nicely warmed up. So the engine is ready to fly. So whenever Whenever the runway's clear, we're ready to go. Okay? Now, can you see that guy on final over there? Yes? Yeah. So we don't want to get too close to the runway because we would crowd him on his final approach. So we stay back a little bit. Kind of why they have this little area right here. Okay, we can see the tetrahedron right there. We know that we have a bit of a crosswind, don't we? We can see that it's not exactly straight down the runway. It's coming across a little bit, and it's kind of shifting. We're going to have a little bit of a shifting crosswind. So we're going to anticipate that. We're going to anticipate that the wind is going to come from that direction. It's going to try and blow us off. So we're going to need a little bit of aileron into the wind and be ready on the rudder to make sure that we don't get blown off the runway on takeoff. Alright, so he's down and he's rolling and it looks like he's about up. Alright, so I'll make the radio call and we're going to go. Springs East traffic, Sonex 604 Charlie Mike, departing 35. We'll be exiting the pattern to the east.
Spring 37 Julia Whiskey, heading right, push crosswind 35, remaining in pattern.
Alright, full rich, kick back, and here we go. More power, a little bit of aileron. We're getting ready for that crosswind. Airspeed's coming alive, we're at 30, 37.
Spring 37 Julia Whiskey, right, downwind 35, remaining in pattern.
And we're flying. Climb out. 70 is our best rate of climb.
Okay.
Anywhere from 70 to 90 is a normal, like, cruise climb. We don't need maximum climb performance. We're just going to climb out in a nice, easy fashion. So we're checking our instruments. Everything's looking good. The engine's running good. Holding a little more than 70. Altitude. We'll turn out to the east. That guy's over there somewhere. That Cessna.
Spring 37 Julia Whiskey, turning final, 35, spring to east.
Alright, just turned final. So our engine's doing good. Our hottest cylinder is right there with the white line at 319, which is well under control. EGTs are all good. Oil temperature, the pressure is good, and the temperature is coming up. We're almost into the grain, which means the engine is almost, fully up to operating temp. Our voltage is doing good. Now that the engine is turning up faster, we're actually making juice. So it's recharging the battery. Doing 93, and we're at 7,700 feet, not 7,800 feet. Climbing out. We'll go up a little higher, get a little altitude so we can do some stalls and some maneuvers.
Okay.
Air's nice and stable. Not getting bumped around it. big number here is our timer. So 16 minutes. The next one is the takt time, the total time. 62.6 hours. And then this last one down here is our flight time, meaning just the time since the wheels left the ground.
Okay.
So the difference between 16 minutes and 4 minutes was our taxi, warm up, waiting for that guy to take off, all that. So we spent 12 minutes on the ground with the engine running, with all that. Warm up, taxi, all that kind of stuff. Alright, so we're coming up on 9,000 feet. That's plenty altitude. We'll kind of go over here, over by Bullseye. Not directly over it, but kind of over in the area. Bullseye is right down over there. Alright, bring some power back. Level off and cruise. Get warmed up a little bit. We're going to do some slow flight installs. So we'll just kind of make sure that our hands and our feet are ready to do what they need to do. You want to get your hands and feet warmed up? Whoa, that's a big pull there. Alright, now let's make a nice gentle turn back to the north. So, the Sonex takes less control pressure. So see how the nose is kind of high? We're in a climb right now. See that? We're climbing at like 800 feet a minute. So lower the nose down a little bit, relax your back pressure. So the nose is about on the horizon, and that's about a good attitude. So, keep coming around. Airspeed is kind of bleeding off a little bit. Nose is high again, so let it come down right about there. Alright. Doesn't take a lot of rudder in the Sonex. Challenger needs a gobs of rudder. Sonex, not so much. Okay, so my airplane, let me demonstrate. We're going to do a turn. What we can do is, got a nice level flight attitude, the nose is close to the horizon. We just kind of ease it over. Maybe just a touch of rudder. Maybe just a touch of back pressure. And just let it fly on through the turn. Nice, easy control movements. Unlike the Challenger where you got to move the stick a lot, in the Sonex, you just need some pressure. You can see I'm barely even holding the stick. I just got a couple of fingers on it. If I want a little bit steeper turn, I can roll in a little bit steeper, a little bit more rudder, just a touch, a little bit of back pressure, and just fly on through the turn. I don't need a lot of stick movement to make the airplane do what I want. Okay? Alright. So, let's do some stalls. Well, let's do some slow flight first. So the way we're going to do slow flight, we're going to reduce power, let the airplane start to slow down. So bring the power back. If we had carb heat, we turn some carb heat on to make sure we don't ice up. But no carb heat, so we don't have to worry about that. And we're just going to hold our altitude. We don't want to descend any. So we've got a little bit of a descent going. I'm going to kind of hold 9,400. Airspeed is coming down because we're bleeding off our power. And as we start to slow down, and put some flaps down, I need some power because I'm going to start a descent. I'm going to roll some power in. And I want that slow speed. I'm going to hold it around, let's say, 50 or so. And I'll find the right amount of power that holds me right at about 50. Okay, I got a little bit of a descent going, 93, 80. That's about it right there. So we're holding it around 50, that's a pretty slow airspeed. 48, 47, need a little bit more power. 46, there we go. Maybe just a touch more. Yeah, that's good. And I can do some real gentle turns. Talking real gentle here. Now if I turn too quick, I could stall the airplane. There's too much of my lift vector, points over, right? Especially if I turn and I yank back on the stick to try and hold altitude. Then I'm definitely going to stall the airplane. So the key in slow flight is to be nice and gentle on the controls. Alright, turn back this way. Nice and gentle. I got enough power to hold altitude. I'm doing nice, easy controls. Holding altitude, my speed is good and stable. Holding around 50. Up the flaps down. Now to recover from slow flight, I don't want to do everything all at once. First, I want to accelerate. So I can lower the nose to accelerate, but I might lose some altitude while I do that, right?
Yeah.
Or I can add power to accelerate, right? Or I can reduce drag to accelerate. So the first thing I'm going to do, I got plenty of power left. I'm just going to add power and I'm going to accelerate. Let's go to full power. Let the airplane start to accelerate. You can see it's accelerating already. I'm holding my altitude. Okay, I'm going to lower some drags. Let's take some flaps off. And I'll continue to accelerate. Let's take all the flaps off. And I can lower the nose. And I've recovered from slow flight. Make sense? Yes?
Yes.
Okay. Alright. So if we do a stall, we're going to do a similar thing. I'm not going to use any flaps, we're just going to slow the airplane down. And we're going to let the airplane brake, and when it revs, the nose is going to drop. So we're just going to kind of ease into the stall here. So we're going to reduce power. We're going to hold the nose up to keep our altitude, bleeding our speed off. Speed's coming off. Back pressure, because I don't want to reduce altitude. Holding that angle of attack, slowing down. 52, 50, 48. Okay, the controls are getting a little mushy. See that? Not as effective. Getting pretty quiet. Starting to get a little bit of nose wandering. See how the nose is kind of wiggling a little bit? If I keep holding back pressure, might get a little nose bobble. Aerodynamically, starting to get a little bit of aerodynamic warning. Rings are rocking a little bit. Nose is bobbling. Gotta make sure I stay coordinated. And the nose is just sort of nibbling at the stall. There's my aerodynamic warning. Now I'm in a high rate of descent right now. So if I continue to apply back pressure, the stall will break completely. There it goes. Feel it break?
Yeah.
If I lower the nose, full power, let it accelerate, and fly out of the stall, recover to level flight. Now I can stall at any power setting. If I just try and climb too steeply, I can stall just right here. If I've got some cruise power in, and I'm trying to climb. Airspeed's dropping. I'm at 53, 52. I'm trying to climb. I got lots of power in, but I'm not paying attention. Uh-oh. Got excessive nose angle. Controls are getting mushy. Nose is starting to wander just a little bit. Think I might be getting close to a stall. I'm definitely getting close to a stall. The nose is kind of nibbling at it. If I keep applying back pressure, it's going to break. There it goes. Lower the nose, reduce angle of attack, add some power, fly out of the stall. See how that happened?
Yeah.
So recognizing the stall is the first key. If you're just, replaying your favorite episode of Minecraft TV in your head and you're not paying attention and the stall sneaks up on you, you're going to be awfully surprised, aren't you?
Yeah.
You got to be paying attention. Okay, now, if we're doing a turning stall, bring the power back a little bit, and we're turning. We're trying to hold altitude. And we're pulling back on the stick to hold our altitude. We're coordinated. We're at 54. Trying to hold altitude. I'm turning base to final. And I really want to make this landing perfect. 53. I'm pulling back on the stick. I'm not paying attention. I'm turning. 50. Uh-oh. Controls are getting mushy. I'm coming up on my stall speed. Stall speed is higher. I got a nice little bank going here. If I'm not paying attention, it's going to stall. You feel the nose kind of hunting a little bit? I'm not paying attention. Uh-oh. Gonna stall. Gotta pay attention. See what I mean? You gotta be watching for these things. Our stall speed is higher in this turn. We're close to the stall and we're at 46, not at 38 like we were last time. We're in a turn. If we keep stalling, the nose will break and it'll fall down into the stall. As long as we're coordinated, it's gonna be a non-event. Okay, so keep the nose coordinated. And there's the stall. If we're uncoordinated, we could snap over into a spin. That could get real exciting. All right.
How do you tell if the airplane's coordinated?
Well, here's the slip ball right here. So when the ball is centered, the airplane's coordinated. Right now, the ball is out this way. So, unlike a yaw string, the thing to remember with a slip ball is step on the ball.
Okay.
So the ball is on that side, I'm going to step on it with that rudder. Uh-oh, too much. I went too far, now the ball's that way. I got to step on the ball. I need a little bit of that rudder. And when you get it coordinated, the ball will be right inside. There we go, now we're coordinated. Now it's going to change on speed and power. If I reduce power, see, watch what happens. If I do nothing, my feet are off the rudder. See, the ball's sitting about right there. If I reduce power, watch what the ball does. I got less power, less airspeed. You know, the plane is reacting differently. If I bring up the power, all that engine torque. You can feel the engine torquing us. The more engine torque you have, the more it's going to move the airplane. Feel it torquing us and pulling us around?
Yeah.
That's why we got movable rudders, is to compensate for things like that. Alright. So it's our job to use the rudder to make the airplane do what we want it to. In this case, we want to fly coordinated. So I'm going to use some rudder, and I'm holding in some rudder to keep the ball centered. Alright, let's go back up a little bit. How you doing? Do those stalls making you nervous, or are you okay?
I'm fine.
Okay. As long as you're paying attention, there's very little to worry about. If you get taken by surprise, that's not good. You always want to be paying attention. You want to be picking up on all the cues. Airspeed, sound, feel, nose hunting, all those things we talked about, you want to be watching all of them. You take all that together to form an opinion about what's going on with the airplane. Now, I want to demonstrate something. Just like a stall speed can go up in a turn, the stall speed might go down. If you're not flying at 1G, then the stall speed's going down. So just because our normal stall speed is 38 or 40, you know, somewhere in that neighborhood, it might be substantially less than that, or substantially more, like in a turn. So, we're going to do a wing over eyes, and at the top of the wing over, I want you to watch our airspeed. We're going to be really low, but we're not going to be stalled, because I'm not going to be pulling any angle of attack on the wing. We're just going to be kind of floating through. And if we're not pulling on the wing, then there's no danger of stall. Because we don't need that much lift, do we? We're not asking for much. So we're going to pull up and we're going to kind of climb and over like that. And we're going to head back the other way. So, we got our power set where we want it. We're going to pull up into a roll. So we're going to climb. Feel that G-force pulling you into the seat.
Yeah.
Airspeed's bleeding off. And up over the top. We're just going to let no back pressure. And back down. And I didn't really get it below 40. We were right at about 40. But it's the same idea. We just kind of cruise over the top. Just because we have a low airspeed doesn't mean that we're stalling. It's all about angle of attack. If I'm just sort of floating through the air at a low angle of attack, it doesn't matter what speed I'm going, right?
No.
It's all about angle of attack. Alright, you ready to try something fun? Alright, hold on to your glasses and cinch down your seatbelt. We'll do a nice easy roll. We're going to accelerate, we're going to pick up some speed, 120, 130, pull up, roll, and recover. Just like in Wildcat. So I got power. So I'm going to accelerate, dive a little bit to accelerate, pick up some airspeed. Pull up a little bit. And roll. Back to level flight. Do it again. Accelerate. Pick up a little bit of speed. Build up our energy. Pull up. And roll. Piece of cake, huh? Kind of fun.
Yeah.
Alright. Pick up our speed a little bit. This time we'll do a loop. And we're going to pull at about 3 Gs. So we're going to pull until we get to 3 Gs. And full power. Full. 2.5, 2.7. There we go. Up and over the top. Power comes back. Pulling around the bottom. Power comes back up. How'd that feel?
Fun.
Pretty good, huh? What do you think? Another roll? Accelerate a little bit? Pull the nose up. Roll. Now we can do a half reverse Cuban 8. When we go up, roll, pull out the bottom. Want to try that?
Yeah.
Okay, so we're going to accelerate a little bit. We're going to pull up to 45 degrees. Roll. Power off. And we're just going to kind of cruise right on out the bottom here. 3.2, 3.3, and we're back. Yeah, we're going kind of fast. Now we picked up some airspeed coming down, pulling out of the bottom. We'll recover some of this back as to air altitude. We'll just kind of zoom on up. And before we get to the stall, we'll just let the nose come on down a little bit. Yeah, we recovered all that airspeed in the form of altitude. Alrighty. What else should we do? We did slow flight, we did stalls. Did a little bit of goofing off. do you think, guys?
No. More loops.
You what?
Let's do more loops.
Another loop? Okay. Alright, so we're gonna bring up the power. We're gonna get lined up along this road here. We're gonna accelerate, build up our energy. Maybe even do a little bit of a dive. And we're gonna do a 3G pull on our loop. Okay, a little bit of a dive. Yeah, we got 130, 135, that looks pretty good. We're gonna pull. 3G pull. Keep pulling, keep pulling, keep pulling, keep pulling. Over the top, reduce power, and we'll let it come on down. We want to keep on pulling. Power comes up. And there we go. We can't be afraid of pulling G's. Because if we don't pull any G's, the airplane's not going to perform for us. Pulling too many G's is a problem if you break the airplane. But as long as you don't pull too many G's, pulling G's is nothing to be worried about. In a Challenger, we can't pull very many before we break things off. In a Sonex, we can pull a lot before we break something off. We got very little to worry about.
Where's the G meter at?
What's that?
Where's the G meter thing?
It'll change from compass to G meter. Here, let me just turn it on. There we go. So we're at 1 G right now. 1.1. If we pull back on the stick, we start pulling G's, 1.7. If we do push out, we can do a negative. We're at a half a G. So take your glasses, guys. Hold your glasses in your hand. So what we can do is we can float your glasses. If we fly a 0 G curve, we can float your glasses in the cockpit. Ready? So first we get the nose pointed up.
It was so heavy. I was just inside. It was so heavy.
Alrighty. Alright, we'll let the engine... Careful that you don't scratch that plastic, okay, with your fingernail. You gotta be careful because it's relatively soft plastic. Alright, let's head on back to the airport. Probably ought to start dropping down. We're kind of high right now at 9,500.
How high can the Sonex go?
The plane will go to about 17,000, but we're only supposed to go to 10,000 over here. We're kind of bumping up against our ceiling.
Okay.
So the Sonex also has built-in navigation. We can turn on the map, and that shows us airports out here. Okay, so these are the different airports. There's Bullseye right out in front of us, and where are we at here? CO49 is Springs East. Guess we flew way out here, way over there. So there's Bullseye right there. So we can kind of tell it's kind of over that way. And CO49 is Springs East. 88CO is Calhan. Lyman is out that way. So we can turn, aiming towards CO49. This is kind of our extended center line of the airplane. And that'll tell us that we need to go right about over that away. Now, this ring is 20 miles. So it's just outside the 20-mile ring. So we're a little more than 20 miles away.
That's cloud active.
What's that?
That's cloud building over there.
Yeah.
Hope that they don't build too much. They click and fly.
Yeah. So if we want to go to an airport, what we can do is we can hit the nearest button, or we can hit the direct button, and it'll bring up the database. Since we're close to CO49, it'll be in our nearest list, the nearest airports to us. So we hit the nearest button, and here's all the airports, starting from the closest to us at 6.1 miles away, all the way down to CO49 right there, 22 miles. We can use the cursor to highlight Colorado Springs, that's right. CO49, and then we can hit the direct button, and it says, let's go directly to Springs East. So it tells us our distance right here, 21.0 miles. It tells us our ECE, estimated time and route, 9 minutes, taking 9 minutes to get there, and our heading, 308 degrees, and that just tells us what airport we're going to, CO49. And our map shows us graphically.
Does this map show land features?
No, it just shows kind of the background.
Okay.
Now there's a modification you can add to make it look like a sectional map with, with terrain features and roads and stuff like that. But it's an extra add-on that you get.
Is there a button that you can push to go to set course? Or tell you which way you need to go for the airport? Like if you're having a problem and you need to land immediately?
You could push the nearest button and just go to the nearest one, and it would pop up with a route to it.
Okay.
Like we were going along, we were like, uh-oh, we got a problem, we got to go to the nearest airport. We can push nearest, it's going to be highlighting the nearest one, direct, and it says, okay, there's our course, there's our heading 226 degrees. So we could turn until we see 226, which is about right over that way. Or we could look at the map and say, okay, we got to go that way. So those are all options that we have. So we'll go back to Colorado Springs East. Now the other way we can do this is, we're on course, we're following here. What we can do is we can use our little heading bug to hold course. We can change this, the heading. This little teal bug right there, as I rotate this, it moves that bug. So we know we're heading directly towards Colorado Springs East. So we can line that bug up with this little arrow. And as long as we keep those guys centered together, we know we're heading right towards it. And even if the wind is blowing us off course, we know we're still heading that way. Because we've set it based on our ground track. So even if we turn our map display off, like, okay, we don't want to look at our map anymore, we just turn it off for right now. As long as we keep that guy lined up, we know we're still heading there.
Okay.
That's another way that we can use to navigate.
What happens if you go into yellow on that side?
It just means that the voltage regulator is not working properly. It's trying to pump out too much voltage.
Okay.
And a little bit over is not a problem. Too much over can start to burn out electronics. So I've got a safety feature built into the airplane that if it goes past the limit, it'll automatically shut down the voltage regulator. That means that the engine will no longer be providing any power, but we won't damage our instruments. As long as we've got battery capacity, we can continue to run the instruments on battery.
Okay.
That saves from having any burn up things that we're gonna have to fix. So there's Bullseye right down there. I don't see anybody making takeoff and landings.
These ponds out to the right have a whole bunch of green stuff on them.
Yeah.
Plants, stuff like that.
Uh-huh. The map can be really useful if you're not familiar with the airport. You're looking around, you're like, where is this thing? It says I'm only 9 miles away, but I look out there, I don't see any airport. Where is it? What we can do is we can zoom in on the map and get a little bit better look. So we can see, okay, well, it's kind of off to that side a little bit. So we need to look over there, maybe a little. So you can kind of change course, so we're flying straight at it. A lot of times what I like to do is maybe not fly exactly at it because I want to be able to see it. So I'll kind of fly off to the side a little bit. So I've got a 5-mile ring. I know I'm 8 miles, but this 5-mile ring, is just good for graphically seeing how far away I am. But I ought to be able to see it when I'm 5 miles out, right? I'd hope so. I'll be just kind of watching. When I get to that 5 miles, I'll really be looking and see if I can spot it.
What's that black line coming out of the airplane?
That's just the extended center line.
Okay.
This makes it real helpful because you can say, okay, I should be pointing my nose directly at the airport now. Okay, so it should be right off my nose. Or if I'm flying alongside it, I should be right alongside it. I should be looking right out there and I should see it. So the map can help you find an airport that you're unfamiliar with by giving you good position, awareness. Alright. So we're back on the airport frequency. Got the airport in sight. And I see that says that he's still making landings. He's on downwind, you can see him. See him on downwind there? He's just by the end of the runway. He's coming this way.
There he is.
Yeah. So we're gonna have to get in sequence with him. So he just turned base. I want to make the radio call. Springs East traffic, Sonex 604 Charlie Mike. 4 miles east, we'll be entering on 45 for downwind, 35 behind Cessna, number 2 for landing. Okay, so we gotta drop down some altitude. Turn the map off, we won't need that.
Spring G7 Julia Whiskey, turn final 35, Spring G.
He's on final. Coming up on our pattern altitude. I like to use about 7,000 or so for pattern altitude, 7,100 maybe in the Sonex. Alright, so we're on our 45 entry. Coming up on, we're a little bit to one side. We're not exactly in the middle of the airport, are we? But it's close. Okay, then we'll turn downwind. Alright, we're on downwind now. Now we gotta fly a bigger pattern than the Sonex. Faster airplane, we need more room. And the challenge is we fly a tighter pattern because we're a lot slower. We don't need as much room. Alright, turning base. So turning base, we got our power, we're getting our power set, we're getting our flaps on. Now ready to set going. Get a little bit of trim. So he's up and flying. Springs East traffic, Sonex 604 Charlie Mike, turning final, 35 left, Springs East, full stop. Alright, turning final, we're gonna nail our airspeed. We can judge our glide, we want to be about 70. So we're getting a little bit fast. Slow it down just a little bit. Glide's looking pretty good. Feels like we're just hanging, isn't it?
Calling 122.9, where are you at?
There's another plane entering the pattern. That Cessna is wanting to know where he is. Alright, looks like I'm going to be just a little bit short, so I need just a bit more power. Just to make sure we don't try and land in the weeds.
Spring Z7 Julia Whiskey, downwind for 35 right. Spring Z.
That's not right. On downwind.
Alright. So level off, flare, hold it, and we're down. A little bit of brakes. We can get off the runway. Don't want to miss the turnoff. Feel that shimmy right there? That's what the gear leg stiffeners are going to stop. Just a little bit of a shimmy at a certain speed, but I don't like it, so I'm going to fix it. Alrighty.
Spring Z7, keep turning base for 35, Spring Z.
Alright, I just like to burn the fuel out of the whole system. Well, good flight, huh?